All right, so in this video, we'll get started and create an app. Graham will feign being a novice, and we'll show you the wireframe that we created, and you can see what we're building as we go. So with that, I'll share my screen and let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So you spent a little bit of time on this wireframe after we finished the last video and fleshed out a couple of other elements here, right?
I sure did. And so this is what we're building. We're not going to deep dive on the use case. Let's just start building. It'll be fleshed in as we go. So today we're going to generate the app. Let's get at it. Okay, so I've got a folder API mock that's got some JSON files in it that we can call later. We don't need that yet. Right now, we're just going to generate. So NPX is a little bit different than NPM because it'll make sure it's using the latest version of the package. So we're going to run create React app, which is the feature from React that lets you generate a new app. And it'll be sure to grab the latest, as it just did.
Wow. Okay, so through the magic of video, that will be sped up. That was pretty close to 5 minutes of generating the base package, or downloading all the packages and generating the base framework file.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing you're probably going to want to look at in a real app is you're going to want to look at what the vulnerabilities are. And you'll have to go package by package. You can run an NPM audit anytime. Well, it actually tells you here, NPM audit and NPM audit fix. That's not germane to this series, so we're just going to do an NPM start. Oh, by the way, let's, so it generated a subfolder, C3UG expense. Oops. There. All right, and there's our package JSON. That's what I wanted to look at. So you always want to be in the same folder as your package JSON. So wow,
it looks like a very empty package JSON.
Well, if I could type.
Package.json.
Yep. Okay. So here's your scripts, right? So I just wanted to show the scripts earlier. Start is React script start, build, and test and inject. And so if your system is set up, some keywords, you can just run npm start. If not, you do npm run -script, whatever it is, okay? And it'll run this in your script. So let's run npm start. Okay, so what did it do? It's actually, it's a very battery. It's included beginner app, and it has everything that you need. It's got a build, so it can build a production ready version of it. It's got a dev server. So it uses the webpack dev server, and that means it'll constantly serve your assets without the need to throw them on a web server. And it does hot reloads too. So every time you save a file, it will hot reload.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So it's built everything, and it's going to show us this really simple one-page app. All right, that's good. But what we're going to do now, and usually what I do is, let me close this window and just show you. Normally what I would do is from the folder, again, where your package JSON is, we're going to use VS Code. Let's run code from this folder, and we don't want to hang our terminal window, so we'll throw an ampersand on there. That's going to open up another code window, which it did in this folder. But by the way, I'm on Mac. If you're on Windows, you may want to use git bash as your shell. And there's a terminal inside VS Code, and you can set that terminal up on a Windows system to use different shells. You can use PowerShell instead of command. You can use git bash. I personally just tend to use git bash as my shell, because you're going to be firing git commands if you're working in a git environment anyway.
So that means that you've got the ability to, what you just did in that terminal window, you can do inside of VS Code without having to leave your.
Correct.
Console.
Well, and once your app's created, that's exactly what I tend to do, is just work in the terminal inside VS Code. But like it creates a subfolder, so the place literally didn't exist yet for you to do it. You could have opened the parent folder in VS Code, but it just depends on how many layers of indirection you want. It's kind of nice to go straight in. So you can see this folder straight where package JSON is. The top level folder from a VS Code perspective is where the package JSON is. Also, just a real quick note, if you're not familiar with VS Code, the modern style of IDEs, it doesn't have its own sort of project structure that's heavyweight. So this folder isn't a VS Code project folder. It's just a folder. It doesn't have to modify the artifacts to put its own metadata. It can, but it doesn't have to. So you just open up a folder. If you're used to other IDEs like Eclipse or Visual Studio, as opposed to Visual Studio Code, they work different. So that said, what we're going to do now is we're going to run a terminal. And we're going to look at what it generated. So index.js is your entry point to the app, and it's saying React DOM render, that this is the highest level component. You'll have an HTML template with, it should be in public. Yeah, there it is. There's index.html. So your index.html is basically going to get replaced at runtime with the contents of your top level React component. So this div here, the framework will replace the contents of that with your entire app. So we never really have to edit index.html unless you want to put something specific in there. Okay, so our work begins with app. Let's take a look at app.js. And note at the top, it imports app CSS. Okay, and it's got an SVG imported. So it's just throwing this on screen, a single div. And this isn't a deep dive React course, but it's noteworthy that what this functional component is returning is actually JSX. JSX looks like HTML, but it's actually JavaScript. And it gets transpiled into JavaScript by the React runtime. The build includes Babel, B-A-B-E-L. Again, very batteries included build, and it'll transpile your JSX into JavaScript so that you're not manually writing JavaScript. All right, so let's actually hack on this a little bit. I think we want to nuke this thing back to the Stone Age. So right now, let's run it. What do we say it was? npm start.
So if you're doing npm start here, why are you doing it here compared to you ran it in the terminal as well? We've still got the browser window open and we've still got the other terminal running.
I killed the other terminal.
Okay.
Because I don't have to change. Well, a couple things. Let me screw something up here. Let's just put an unclosed bracket there.
So we're going to break it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I hoped it would break it. I usually have no trouble breaking it, but my point is that the magic of hot reloading, and it shows you what's going on in the console all the time. So it actually you'll see your errors here before you even look at the browser, which is pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. So, okay, here we go. Like it just took a second, but it said failed to compile, right? It's compiling again, and it's going to fail to compile, right? You'll see that. I don't have to switch to another terminal window. You could, gotcha. I mean, It's just really convenient. There's no real difference as far as the outcome. It's just more convenient. So
we could throw away that terminal window. I was just curious if you'd left
yeah.
it sitting there for a reason.
No, I mean, sometimes you'll use terminals for different things as you go, but no, for our needs, if we have one terminal, well, and you can have multiple terminal windows inside VS Code as well. So just depends on preference, but let's go. So we've got an app running. Let's go back to the browser. Ooh, yeah. Now it's happy again, right?
Yep.
What I like to do when I'm developing is the app I'm building, I put far left, because I have all these tabs are open for a reason, actually, but as throughout your day, you get 732 of them, and then you're a good boy and you close them. In the meantime, I like having the first tab be in the app I'm developing. So back to what we're building, our XD wireframe. Let's start fleshing out a really simple page here before we do too much. Okay, so let's
building blocks, basic building blocks.
We're going to keep a top level div class name equals app. That's fine. And div footer, div body. Do you know the difference between a div and a header?
I was just going to ask, actually.
Okay, so they're both block level elements. Your browser will render them basically the same, but they're semantic. So, noteworthy, there's also a HTML footer element. So we want to use it, right? Cool. That's not going to be very visually exciting.
But now we've got full control of what's going on.
Yeah, and this warning, this is just saying this logo wasn't used, and they're right, it wasn't used. We will import our own later. All right, so we got header, body, footer. Now we can't really tell what's going on as far as sizing. So let's take a look at our app CSS. And these are the React specific styles. I'm gonna kill them. Let's see. We'll keep apt. I don't want text align center. I'm going to lose that. It actually doesn't like empty styles. So
that's VS Code doesn't like empty styles?
Yeah. Well, like the way the build is set up, it's linting your JavaScript all the time, and it gives you warnings for a lot of things. So logo is defined but never used. Let's, to the extent you can have no errors, no warnings. That's good. So no errors, no warnings. Let's actually
let's see the browser page now that you just made that simple change. What happened?
It should be nothing yet, actually. They're not centered. Sorry, it's something. Yep. And not a fan of inline styles, but let's and let's do it the colors from the wireframe. So XD, let's just, and I'm not going to get the right red or anything. I'll just do red, black, gray. Okay, fair. Just so we can block it out on the screen. So let's do red, and let's just do padding. How about 40 pixels?
Okay.
All right. So we need an equal sign after style. Here we are. Here we go. And we'll do a gray box as well. So let's just do div, do some copy paste. We're going to put these in the CSS. We're not leave them in here. Background color. Oh, I always mix up the spelling. GREUI?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
We'll find out in a second. Yep.
I think some of them are aliased because internationally there's different spellings for different things, but at the best of times I'm confused between Canadian spelling, US spelling, and British spelling. I Google stuff regularly, it's sad. Okay, sorry, we wanted our...
Change that from gray.
We're gonna make that red. Okay, we only need 3 of them to illustrate the point. There you go. All right, so what do we got? We got a page with a header, a body, footer. Divs are block level elements. Headers and footers are semantically different, but layout wise should be about the same as a div. And
Okay.
by
How
default,
about we
full
take
width. Well, sorry, by default, full width, and they'll stack vertically because they are block elements as opposed to inline elements, which will flow. For Western languages, that's left to right, but note that there's a block access and an inline access in CSS. So if you tend to think of left, right, top, bottom, but CSS thinks in terms of the block access and the inline access. So if we're talking about the block access, that's vertical for Western languages. It's going to stack top to bottom. And that's what it's done because we didn't tell it otherwise. And this is a good segue.
Okay.